Hello and welcome to the first podcast on this channel. I'm going to be talking with a friend of mine on the subject of transhumanism. Introduce yourself, please.
I am Chef Diesel.
Welcome. So, where should we start? What should we talk about first? Introduce yourself.
Well, last night we talked about whole brain emulation and quantifying consciousness.
Right. And how should we? So let's set a talking point first. Okay, the nature of the brain. Let's just talk about that first, if you'd like.
All right.
Okay. So previously we were talking about how the brain could be replicated and whether it could be replicated on differing formats, as in, could the brain be replicated in a digital format, or would it just be necessary to do such in an artificial brain? And what were you saying? So your talking point was that you didn't generally believe that. Did you? I mean, you did. You didn't generally believe that it could be replicated in a digital format, did you? As of now.
Well, my understanding is, my ideas are that we should not try to exactly replicate the organic brain. We should do our own design. Like if you emulate something organic, you shouldn't perfectly replicate it digitally. You should have a creative design that translates but does the same thing. And hence emulation.
Right. Yeah. I mean, but wouldn't that be possible on like in a digital space? I suppose, or should we just?
I'm talking generally.
So okay, so yeah, okay, I can agree upon that. Uh, it would be possible, but I think the best way to do it would first be to define what actually is consciousness and determine a way in which we can actually replicate it. So, how would you define it?
Well, first I would say that my interpretation of sentience, that when you are able to acknowledge your own existence,
Okay.
that is something that I'm just guessing on this from my own experience, that you experience every single day when all the parts of your mind reassemble,
Right.
and then they disassembles, and you're no longer a person. But when you wake up, you reassemble, and you become a person again. So if I'm right about that, you should be able to fall asleep as a human being and reawaken in your robot body,
Yeah.
and
I mean,
gain it the same way.
yeah. I can agree. I can agree on that. Yeah. My general view is quite similar. I believe generally that your consciousness and your personality is bound to your let's just say information pattern, and in that way you talked about how an individual is sentient while conscious, right? And when they're
Yeah.
unconscious, that fades. Yeah. My view would be that the information pattern would fade in that regard, and as long as the information is replicated in the robot body, then yeah, um, both would be the same person and both be sentient. So yeah, but you're talking about an artificial brain. So would that be like biological, or how would it be?
Okay. Well, each component, like each part of the brain, would be emulated by itself as a component by itself. And when those parts of the brain come together and fuse together, as a and then become sentient for a limited amount of time before they become not sentient or anti-sentient. It's a big enough word now. Yeah, I completely lost my point.
No, I
I
understand
tongue
your
my
point.
I tongue tie myself sometimes.
No, no,
One of the thing, one of the things I was inspired by to think about this was, have you ever watched the cartoon Steven Universe?
I have not. I no, I have not. No.
Well, it's got these aliens who they can fuse into from two beings into one, and when the two beings fuse into one being, it's like 1 + 1 = 1. It's like Sapphire, the character Sapphire and the character Ruby fuse into Garnet, and Garnet is Garnet, but those two personalities are gone.
Okay.
And I was applying that to the different parts of the mind, of the brain, that would come together, and it's more than the sum of its parts.
Mm.
And that's the thing that is you. But you
Okay.
disappear when those things are separated every night when you go to sleep. That's a guess, based on my experience falling asleep and waking up.
Well, yeah.
I actually followed myself awake at one time and experienced, for the first time, everything coming together, and I felt like a weird sensation, but was like with all the seams coming together almost, and I felt I had the sensation or almost the vision of a green asterisk, almost as like it was on a 90s Apple computer, like a green glowing asterisk, and that was the center, and then it faded. It was just that it was a very unique sensation, but I never forgot it, and that's what I'm basing this on.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, when you do go to sleep, I mean, there are your subconscious and the parts of your brain do function, especially during well, REM sleep, where you dream and such, and you have like a limited consciousness, right? You have a limited awareness of of your
Well, my
virtual environment.
understanding is that you have, if you compare organic brain processing to bits, like a bits per second in a computer processing. The subconscious is supposed to be like 40 million bits per second in processing speed, as an allegory. And by comparison, consciousness, the conscious mind, is like only 4 bits per second.
Right.
So much. My guess there is
Mm.
that based on those two ideas, is that much of the heavy lifting as far as thinking, and even consciousness, is done by the subconscious, and the conscious is more like a pilot in the vehicle, as we discussed before.
Right. Well, yeah. I can agree. I mean, it's yeah. I mean, I mean, our ideas do link. I mean, yeah.
I'm not basing
It's
this on any science or mathematics. I'm just going from my own experience. As we discussed before, I am not. I've never taken a single university science class. I'm taking ideas and connecting the dots based on what I read online. That's it.
I
I
mean,
have
my
no, I have no training in science or physics. Okay, I am
right.
not an expert. I'm just delving into things that were way over my head, but I'm being really confident about it.
I mean, my entire basis is similar. I guess my entire basis is generally the same way. It's all based on what I've read on the internet and what I
Right.
piece
I
by.
don't want you or your audience to think that I have any degree or any level of training in anything I'm talking about. I don't even
No,
have an
I
associate's
mean,
degree in anything.
okay. It's not really about that though. I mean,
Alright.
we're both like we both have a general interest in the topic and we have some understanding that has been bound by logic. So yeah, but I personally don't believe your idea is flawed in any way. But
Thank you.
yeah, that's just like my personal view. I believe it just yeah, it just lacks a scientific basis. or
Well, I was thinking of the Feynman technique. You know the physicist Feynman?
no, I do not.
He was a physicist that had this technique called the Feynman technique. And
Right.
he was saying, I think he was applying it to physics, but I was like stretching it to apply to everything else.
Okay.
If you can't explain something like what you're talking about to a small child, and you have to throw around like $30 or $40 words, or really like words that only like college professor you use in like graduate studies,
Mm.
so only your smart friends can understand you. You don't really understand what you're talking about, and you need to go back to hit the books because if you're disguising your ignorance of your own subject with jargon.
I mean, yeah, it's that's generally how it is. I can, yeah.
I mean, you can
A
look it
lot.
up on YouTube. Look up the Feynman technique on YouTube. You'll see what I'm doing. It's extensively documented.
No, I understand. A lot of people would just like put in just really scientific sounding terminology just to base
Yeah,
to make
actually,
themselves, yeah.
that's a little bit of a problem I had with your giant walls of text last night, full of technical terminology. I honestly, I'm probably the only person in this entire state which would understand that big wall of text. But somebody who's just reading in the paper would not make heads or tails of it, and would just see you as very intelligent and just write you off as intelligent and know what you're talking about, regardless of whether or not your ideas were valid. And I think that's extremely dangerous.
I mean, I mean, if you want, I could go over it and simplify it, right?
I understand the logic behind it. I'm just talking about how the general think about like politics. I mean, at least American politics. Okay.
Mm.
Generally, politicians talk to the people on the television, right?
Mhm.
Or the telly across the pond there. I'm trying to get into the UK terminology. We don't use that over here. Anyway,
Right.
the idea is they speak at the 8th grade level, so
Okay.
they get to the most people can understand them.
Mm.
But if they spoke at the 10th grade level, the amount of people that would understand them would reduce dramatically, almost exponentially.
Well, that
So they
says a
kind of
lot.
have to do that.
That says a
Says
lot about
something
the
about
American system.
yes, and I think the American education system is deplorable. I mean, at least up to high school. Colleges are a little bit different. I have been to Cambridge, Massachusetts. It has Google, it has Microsoft, it has MIT, Harvard. I loved it. It was wonderful. And I went to the college bookstore, the MIT bookstore. They had
Mm.
pretty much wall-to-wall books on AI and the philosophy of AI, and just so many books on AI lining the walls. I walked out of there, full of wonder and terror,
Yeah.
because I was thinking of the Animatrix. Yeah, I was thinking of the Animatrix like the precursor cartoons to the Matrix movies by the Wachowski brothers. Have you ever seen the Matrix movies?
I have not.
Okay. Well,
Right.
okay. You know, you can look them up on YouTube. The Animatrix is on YouTube. You can watch it. It's very interesting. And it's a dystopian future where machines become sentient and take over the world, and
Oh right,
use
yeah.
power source.
I believe.
Yeah.
Wait, the Matrix. Right, right.
The
Yeah.
Matrix and
yes.
the Animatrix
Okay.
is on YouTube. You can actually watch it whenever you like
Right.
on YouTube.
I've seen the Matrix. I
The
don't really.
Animatrix.
Okay.
They're the
Yeah.
animated prequel stories to the Matrix movies.
Okay. I might check them out. That sounds interesting because
It is a cautionary tales of going all willy nilly into AI and not respecting creating a new form of intelligent life that could foreseeably enslave us.
Mm. Well, yeah. Okay. Let's. You know what? Let's go into the topics we were discussing earlier, and you know what? Let's broaden it out. You you said I sort of I really hope I do not fit into that category of people, right?
What? Oh, the people that
yeah.
they're disguising their ignorance with jargon. I don't
Right.
think they're one of those people. I think that here's what my understanding is, that you should take scientism with philosophy and art and make it into something that everyone can understand, not just college graduates.
Right. Yeah.
If you need to have a doctorate in anything to understand what someone else is saying, then your communication skills are lacking. You need to have art as well as science in your expression, in my opinion. I'm taking that. It comes from taking game design classes as well.
Well, yeah. I mean, I do agree that the that science and intellectual subjects do have to be easy to understand, or as in
Yeah, I mean,
it should be possible for a lot of the concepts to be explained in a manner in which the general public would understand.
Well, let's
Um,
take your. Let's go back to your wall of text, okay? From before.
sure.
A normal person. I am by no measure a normal person, okay? But a normal person is going to look at your wall of text and zone out.
Yeah, they'd say they no,
But when
just
something's well presented and well designed for a person to absorb,
right.
um, and entertaining to absorb, and it's funny and is dramatic and understanding, almost like a cartoon.
Mm,
And actually, cartoons are actually a better way to absorb the information.
right. Yeah, I mean, one of the many reasons a lot of people do not buy into the transhumanism movement or even a lot of science is because of they may see it as perhaps frightening and like
Well, there's a lot
an
of
unfriendly
ignorance and
territory.
hate on YouTube about the number of the beast. The beast is coming and it's in your computer. Your computer is the beast. Turn
Yeah,
off your computer.
I
Do not
mean,
believe in evolution.
yeah, I mean, I'm one of those people that generally believe that a lot of religion does slow down the progress of humanity.
Well,
It's
Richard Dawkins believed in that as far as oh, okay. Richard Dawkins was. I don't think he was against religion
right.
per se, but he was
Yeah,
against the religiosity. What
right.
we
Yeah,
do with the concept of God and how it keeps us ignorant
right.
and it
Yeah,
pushes ignorance upon the people, and it's not good. And when you defend ignorance as wisdom in the name of a simple life, I'm sorry, but that is terrible.
right. It generally is. I mean, if you look at history, for say, you see the entire Dark Ages. You know, it's an era of I'd say, as I mean, in from what I've heard, it's a lack of technological development, and I'd suppose they were the times in which religion was um, in its highest value, if that makes
Right.
sense. I
Well,
mean,
religion, when you're talking about a theocracy where the
right,
church and the government are the same, you have Iran. No matter what religion it is,
right, yeah,
it's going to become Iran. You could have a
yeah,
Christian Iran, you could have a Wiccan Iran,
right,
you could have a Buddhist Iran. It would
right,
be because I mean, let's go back to Dawkins.
mm,
The common sense logic. Okay, God is love, and if you don't love God, you don't love love. And if you don't love love, then you don't love your children. And if you don't love your children, you're abusive, and they should be taken away from you because you don't believe that God exists because He is love. And those are circular arguments, and you can't win. You can't win against those arguments, and they're almost intellectually abusive. And you
right,
keep putting your logic in circles and abusing the intellectuals that are trying to make a cogent argument, and all the religious people can do is running you in circles. They're almost like hackers. They're almost like taking your logic and hacking it. They're messing with it, almost like they're social engineering or kind of like running your logic in circles. I think that's what Dawkins had a problem with.
right. Yeah,
Don't
I'd
you love
have
love?
I.
What's wrong with you? Don't you love love? If you love love, you come to church with me.
How could you not love love?
How do you not love love? What's wrong with you?
Right. Yeah, it's one of those things.
Yeah.
I would agree on with a lot of what Richard Dawkins says, and his viewpoint is generally a minority viewpoint. It's a lot of society does, in my opinion, overvalue um, what you yeah, religiosity or however you defined it. Um, yeah, it's an issue when um, due to the lack of scientific understanding, a lot of people would place the unknown as being God. You know, in science we have say, oh, dark energy. Whoa, we have a lack of understanding in that area of physics.
One of the
So
one of the arguments against religiosity and religion and God was made by a cartoonist named an animator named Dark Matter. On
mm,
I think there's a bunch of numbers after his name, but I can't remember. But
right,
Yeah, he makes a lot of cases using actual stories from the Bible and scriptures, proving that it's nonsense logically.
Right.
And actually, you're welcome to. I'll give you the link later, and it's got a lot of interesting things, including a science fiction story that puts Yahweh as in almost like a Type 3, a Type 2 civilization, an advanced civilization in which he is a teenager and he's being tested by he's given his own universe to govern over, and he fails. And the Old Testament is the result of him getting an F.
So what? The New
It's
Testament would be his
really
reading.
amusing, and he's a 60-year-old, and his father is Joseph, and his mother is Mary, and they live in the future in this Type 3 or Type 2 cottage of civilization, or it's this advanced futuristic civilization, and it's very interesting to see it from that perspective. It actually paints God as a moody teenager that it's put in charge of a universe and abuses his
Yeah,
charges.
I mean that would sound very. That sounds quite intriguing. Yeah.
I will give you the link later after we finish recording because it's amazing. He does a lot of amazing work.
Yeah. I mean it sounds quite intriguing.
It's funny, very funny. Yeah.
But yeah. As I was saying, yeah, religion is one of those things that people generally use as a placeholder.
Well, I really want spirit to exist because can you imagine the technological revolution that would happen if science could prove spirit? You could construct buildings with your will very quickly. If I wanted to construct a homeless shelter, I could will it to be so, and it would raise from the ground as a skyscraper. That would be amazing. We would have no more homeless people.
To be honest, yeah, they just die, just put their spirit in another body. It's so cool.
Well, you know.
Yeah. No, but speaking of spirits, I find it as another flaw. I personally do not believe in any, spirits or any.
Well, we can't prove it, so I don't believe in it either.
Yeah, exactly. It's
own...
yeah, it's one of those things, but it's also one of the things that science doesn't tread on in hopes of not pissing off religious people.
Well, religious people can be very dangerous.
Definitely.
I mean, just because a cult is thousands of years old doesn't make it any less a cult.
Right. And yeah, I mean, no, you have a valid point.
A cult could be millions of years old. If nobody questions it, it's going to keep going.
Right.
I believe that I have a ball of fire floating above my hand, and no one's going to question it because I'm going to kill them, and that will go on unquestioned for billions of years until somebody questions it.
Right. Yeah, it's generally.
It's the Emperor's New Clothes.
Yeah.
Emperor's New Clothes, basically.
I've heard of it. Isn't it where
The Emperor's New Spirit.
Right. Yeah. Right, and
I'm in a rather silly mood today.
No, they are logical points. I'm
a cartoonist. I thrive on humor and making fun of things that people consider normal.
No, I mean, as Richard Dawkins said, I believe, I can't believe of the exact quote. I have to paraphrase, but he talked about when having a belief, if you're scared of having the belief questioned, then it's already invalid. I believe it's something along those lines.
I have to apologize for something because I didn't realize I was doing it. I have what I've called an empathic accent.
Right.
I will speak the accent of the person I'm talking to. I am not British at all. Okay, I'm American. If someone's listening to this, say, "Why is that American making fun of us?" Okay, you know what? I'm not even realizing I do it. I was actually in an Uber, and there was a Middle Eastern man, and we were talking about the war in Iraq, which I participated in.
Oh goodness! And you were talking in like a Middle Eastern accent.
Now, the thing is, I was being respectful about it. Right. And we actually got on very well. And we actually, I left the vehicle, and I was like, "Yalla!" and he was like, "Salam!" It was really fun. It was very pleasant, and it
Right.
it was a pleasant interaction. But I don't want anybody, your listeners, to think that I'm
Yeah,
making
that
fun of
you're
British
making
accent.
fun of. Yeah.
I'm not. It's just something I do unconsciously. I
Right.
don't know why. It's just something that ends up happening.
Wait. So All right. Wait. What were we talking about? Okay. Let's just go back to spirits. So fundamentally, I was saying that I do not necessarily believe that spirits could be a thing. I'm generally I support a lot of materialist philosophy, so I would generally believe that if it has an action in this world, it has to exist in this world, right?
Well, my understanding was that was shifted when I went to MIT. They actually doing some tests on me because
Right.
I was at the Veterans Administration. I had been very sick with post-traumatic stress for a while
Mm.
from the war, and I told them I was hearing voices,
Oh.
and they wanted. It was basically it wasn't. They were telling me to do things. It was like switching around on a radio and hearing people's conversations. It was weird. And I was like, they weren't even talking to me. It was like I was just switching around, like almost like switching channels.
Oh.
And I told them that, and they said okay. And these MIT people came over, and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the
Right.
MIT, and they did tests on me with an fMRI machine,
Okay.
and they paid me $50 for every session. And
Okay.
they also, I heard something that it was also something that might increase human intelligence as an after effect. I'm not sure.
I
I
doubt
really-
I would doubt it.
I was still on my Seroquel or quetiapine they were using to dumb down my mind a little bit.
Right.
But since I've gotten off of that, it's been like a surge of intelligence naturally. But I don't think that's something they gave me. That's something I earned over time. But it was kind of like it was almost like making up for lost time. I had been on the Seroquel for about 10 years, and I quit cold turkey and went completely insane. But I locked myself in the comic book shop that I had started running, and I kept myself safe and the public safe, and I recovered on my own by my own willpower, which it was immensely painful and immensely uncomfortable, but I recovered from it.
Well, that and how exactly would you explain that? Would it be? It would have to be in.
I think I tongue-tied myself. I think I lost my point. I lost my point. I apologize.
No, I guess that could link to like neuroplasticity. I guess.
Oh no. Okay.
I mean,
I was trying to say that they had done tests on me,
right.
and I lost my point.
And what they're basically trying to prove something that.
No. Okay, I got my point again. Bioelectricity. I learned about bioelectricity at that lab, at the neurology lab, that I had never heard about before. And then I started to say, hey, maybe bioelectricity is spirit, or maybe chi or ki or whatever we've been thinking about in all these different parts of the world in Chinese and Japanese martial arts. When you talk about chi and ki, when Christians talk about spirit and the Holy Spirit, when Wiccans talk about magic,
Right.
All kinds of different spiritualities talk about some kind of internal energy, and I think that bioelectricity might be it.
That's another thing that's one thing I cannot agree on.
I'm guessing on that. It was a guess. I don't have any proof of this.
Right. No, because the number one thing about the spirit is that if we're gonna link it back to my idea on what consciousness is, and before we were talking about the mind, and I described it as being an information pattern, right? You replicate the pattern, you replicate consciousness, and in that same regard, the carrier of this information would have to be something that can viably carry the information and distribute it, and have varying levels of data, right?
So boring, man. So boring. I'm sorry. It's presentation. You speak to that to someone in the 8th grade.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm not disparaging your knowledge. I'm saying that there are very few people in my country.
Okay. I'll try again. I'll try again. I'll try. I'll try
Dumb down
something.
your language, please. For
Okay.
the Americans. Dumb down for the
Okay.
Americans, please.
Right. Okay. Okay, Americans. Here we go. We got the new education system here, right?
Oh boy, I really want to go across the pond, right?
Yeah, just
I thought
jump
you'd
in.
say
Just
that.
just come over, right?
I want to go over that experience in the English education because even though we take English classes and we learn American English, which is
Right. Yeah, but the thing is, I generally wouldn't even say that there's a massive difference between the English populace and
well, again, I
the
don't have
American
experience
populace.
with learning the difference. I haven't been to England.
Right, right. No, but I'm just saying it from my I guess perspective. There's a lot of dumbasses here. But
Well,
that,
there's dumbasses everywhere.
yeah. um yeah, but okay, my point is that okay, let's say you have a computer circuit, right? And say it's a transistor. It will measure electrical input. If there's electricity, it's a 1. If there's no electricity, it's a 0. And
Hold on a second. I have something to think of. Have you ever heard of a qubit?
yeah, I have. It's really
I love how
intriguing.
it can both be a superposition of 1 and 0 and everything in between.
Oh, it's fantastic, isn't it? It's a brilliant idea.
That instead of thinking in do you think in parallel or do you think in serial?
As in what?
Think about the difference between quantum computers and regular.
Right, yeah. Yeah,
Now,
quantum
do
computers
you thi-
would process in parallel, right? They would
Quantum
generally
in parallel and
Right.
regular computers think in serial. Now,
Exactly.
right now, are you thinking in flowcharts? Are you thinking one piece of logic at a time, or are you doing it all at once?
Well, generally, how I'd believe if I were to interpret the brain, I would generally assume that it is serial. You know.
So how would it be like to think in parallel?
Oh, like a god.
Amazing, right?
It would be brilliant.
Your IQ would be thousands and thousands.
Oh no, you know, you would be like every entity you wanted to be. You would be every possible thing. You could think of every possible thing in one instance.
I mean, why don't we build a brain that can think in parallel? Why do we have to limit us to goals?
But I think that's the flaw.
As I said this in my book, actually, I have a book I published on Amazon. It's called "The Strange Song," the Mad Rambling and so forth, right?
Okay.
But which I wrote while
So
I was mad.
you've written a book.
It's a 104-page book on Amazon,
Oh, okay.
and you can order it if you'd like. And but most of it's on my Medium blog, which I think I'd give you the link. I can give you the link later.
Yeah.
But it's basically a collection of my Facebook writings, and I just like collected it all together and put it in a book. And I lost my point again.
I think you were talking about human like the human consciousness in parallel.
Parallel, yeah.
Yeah. And how would that link with your book?
I had a quote. I remember I had a quote. It's disappeared from my memory for some reason.
Right.
It'll come back to me. It'll come back to me.
Cool. Yeah, but I believe that we need some restrictions in the human processing power. That's generally my if you want to maintain consciousness, it would have to be because I read somewhere I do not know if this is in actuality a real law or anything. You know?
It came back to me. Not to interrupt you.
Okay, go ahead. Just okay.
Right. If people, it's my quote from my book is: if people complain that I'm playing God, then fine, I won't violate his copyright. I'll create something new.
New game.
Instead of a serial brain, why don't we invent something new that can advance our species and become like the post-human or the Homo Deus instead of Homo sapiens? Why are we making an artificial Homo sapiens when we're building something and we have complete control of what we're building? Why don't we build something better? Why don't we build a brain that can think in parallel? Wouldn't that be better?
Yeah, it would, but the impacts on society would be crazy.
You're talking right to a Type 2 or Type 3 civilization.
Yeah, I mean, we jump in an instant, but our society would, the way our society would work, our society would collapse.
It would be an explosion.
Yeah, right.
A technological revolution on the level of a hypernova.
And to be honest, in a way, I want to say we wouldn't essentially be um right. I lost my point now. I'm just
I am
literally
so sorry.
I'm
I'm
literally
rubbing off on
catching
you
it
now.
from you.
I am sorry. I have given you a thought virus. I apologize.
Yeah.
I'm infecting everyone with my disease. I apologize.
Okay.
It's very contagious.
Wait. So. Oh right. Right. I remember. I remember. I remember. I remember. Okay.
Thank God. There's anything wrong with that.
So so you were saying that we should create a brain that functions that can process in parallel, right?
Yes.
And the outcome would be a exponential increase in computational power.
Why don't it goes from it'll take us 10 years to put a hotel on the moon to let's take a few days and colonize the whole
Yeah.
Milky Way.
And the reason
While we're drinking tea and watching Laverne and Shirley, let's colonize the galaxy in a few days while we're multitasking. That is the effect of parallel thinking in all of humanity. I'm sorry.
I just really hate these British stereotypes. They're so bad because they don't half of them are just so outdated, honestly. But yeah.
Like, are you talking about the accent that I'm failing at?
Yeah, not even that accent, just the tea drinking. Like, okay.
Okay, I apologize. I wasn't even talking about English. I like tea. I'm an American. I wasn't talking about the English. I like tea. Okay?
I don't know. I mean,
can be an American and like tea. You know, we threw a lot of tea off. We threw a lot of tea off the side of the boat a long time ago. But I think the statute of limitations is off on that. You know,
Whoa.
I think the statute of limitations run out on that. Enough of the father, please.
So okay, I guess we've just kind of lost the whole point.
We're getting distracted. That's my fault.
Yeah. Okay. Let's. Okay. You know what we should do? have a set of questions. All right. So what should we talk about? What should we talk about? First thing. What should we talk about?
Okay, well, one interesting thing I found out when I first heard about whole brain emulation was that earthworm that they had taken and digitized its mind and transferred it into a robot, where they didn't have to program the robot because there was an artificial worm mind in the robot operating. So they didn't have to program the robot. It was amazing to me.
Oh right, so it was kind of like a brain transplant into the robot, or
no, it was a mind transplant.
But how did
the
they?
Brain, the brain of the earthworm was still in the earthworm.
Right. So they used whole brain emulation to what? Decipher the information pattern, right? Or
I don't know enough about it to really understand how they did it.
Right.
But my questions for them would be: is it a transfer or a copy?
Oh, right. I really wanted to get into this. That's the thing. My general idea, linking to information and stuff, there's no difference in my general opinion. There is no difference. I'm a strong supporter of deterministic consciousness theory.
What is that? I haven't heard that.
It's so that in philosophy you have free will and determinism, right? And to an extent, free will is okay. This individual can think for themselves, blah blah blah. I support the more deterministic approach when going into detail. I believe that your consciousness is bound to the structure of your brain and the information transfer. Your consciousness is also and that information pattern is bound by your upbringing and the stimulation of your senses, right? So, for instance, the way I'd place this is okay. If you have a knife and you have a friend, right? You have the chance of killing that friend, but let's assume that you're mentally stable, right? And there's no reason for you to kill the friend. Assuming, yeah.
You really have to assume with me.
Right. I mean, we could assume otherwise. Someone who's mentally unstable has a higher chance. Except I would say it's not that you performing the action is not bound on whether you want to or not. It's more bound to whether your brain is programmed to do it or not. And in that fashion, your free will is bound by the structure of your brain, and it is more deterministic. It is more based on how your brain acts, more than how you want your brain to act, if that makes sense. So
Well, my understanding of neurology and psychology, of the little I've studied about, it, I have a degree, right?
right.
Um, um, kind of stigma on that a little bit. I'll get my point back. Um, yeah, I lost my point. But by the time, it's something to know about me is that by the time, if I have to ask, even myself, or in a conversation, if
Right.
I have I lost my point, I've already lost it.
Don't ask
Okay.
yourself. Just continue.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I've lost
That.
my point. Go on with your side of the conversation. It'll come back to me.
Okay. So my general idea is that that the complexity of consciousness can be grandly limited down to your information pattern, right? And through the way that your brain is structured, if you can simulate that um, digitally, or let's say make the same algorithm that performs in the same way as your actual brain, then you've essentially recreated consciousness, and both individuals are the same, no matter
Right.
regardless of
But
copy.
the question is, if you think
It
that
doesn't.
you've
Yeah,
specified
I'm gonna get to that. I'm gonna get to that.
uh,
It is still you. All right, it is still you, and it is you. Um, you know, on the computer, when you copy a file, and if you when you're moving a file, you're essentially copying it and deleting the original, right? That's essentially what is occurring,
you know what? No, hold on a second.
right?
I completely agree with you. The logic disassembled itself in my brain. Okay, I it makes sense to me. You're preaching to the choir. I already agree with you. I'm sorry. It just came together in a way that I can't really express right now. But
Yeah, that's how it came to me before. I almost disproved this. So I didn't really believe it. It changes the way you think about human consciousness. The way I sort of gone onto it.
right, well, yeah, and like okay, if you think of consciousness and the brain as static,
Right.
and people are saying like in Star Trek, like the teleporter,
Right.
um, where okay, you're being deconstructed and reconstructed somewhere else.
Right.
They're saying, oh, you die, and you die from that, but the person that comes out on the other side of the teleporter is not really you; it's a copy of you
But the
based
truth
off of
is,
Adam.
but the truth is, there is no difference. There's no difference
Okay,
between the original and the copy.
but how would you know if you're a copy?
Because if you they say wait, hold on, they say that they replicated it the same way, right? In that instance,
If you're
exactly
an
the same
exact
way.
copy, how would you know that you were a copy? How would you would think that you were the original, but how would you know if you
You
were a
wouldn't
copy?
know, and if it wouldn't really matter. Okay, your atoms are all 13 points, the age of the universe, right? So 13.7 billion, I believe. Am I right? Am I wrong? Okay.
I'm not.
You know,
Not
I'm just
knowledge that
gonna I'm gonna
privy
Google
to.
it. I'm gonna Google it. All right. Okay.
Just don't Google yourself too much. You'll go blind.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's okay. I actually got it right. Yeah. It's around 13.8 billion.
I'm making jokes. I'm making jokes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like
That's
it's
a hairy keyboard.
yeah. Or
You Google
oh.
yourself too much.
Or if you look at screens, your eyes will burn or something, or you'll lose your vision.
The nun is going to smack your keyboard hand for googling yourself too much.
Right,
I'm
and
sorry.
no,
Continue.
and my main point is that if you manipulate, like if you have atoms that are fundamentally the same, and organize them in a way that is exactly the same, they both have the same age, and they both have the same structure, and as such, information is the same. There is no copy. There's only two
I like
versions. That's my general idea. The copy is you. You just need to delete the other one while it's unconscious, and it will be like waking up. Yeah,
And that's
technically,
what I said before about the car
technically,
moving down the road. Like I said last night.
right,
The
exactly,
car moving
exactly.
from one city to another. It's still you.
But if you
You
observe,
cleared up some amazing. You took a weight off my shoulders. Thank you very much.
yeah, and it's the same way. Like a person can observe that and say, but the car is essentially being deassembled in one point and reassembled in the other. If you have like a time frame of the universe, I suppose. I don't know.
Taking motion into account. What time? Because
Yeah,
have you seen the music? Have you watched Doctor Who?
yeah, I'm a massive fan.
No, that's a fan too. I need to get into it. I just started watching the new season, and you know what was that? He was in a university with a an African American student
Right.
that was a real genius. You
Mm.
remember that episode, the new one? He was talking
Um.
about time as a city,
Okay.
the city was your entire life, and
Okay.
every point is like a cross section. And you're seeing it if you see it from a higher perspective, you can see it as an entire object,
Yeah,
but
exactly. You
we're
can see,
experiencing cross sections.
you can see every part of the timeline as a pattern, right?
Right. So
Yeah.
if you talk about the car driving down the road or motion,
You're
it's not
essentially
really you're being
seeing.
deconstructed. It's a person that would say, and I'm guilty of this. I'm
Mm.
just guilty of this.
Mm.
If you could say that, oh, I was just deconstructed, I died, but then I was reborn as a different person on this other side. That's like
Right.
you saying, oh, I'm coming from the perspective of the cross section, where I'm ignoring the entire body, the entire
Yeah, yeah.
object from a higher perspective.
The truth is, the original does die, but in the whole picture, the original lives on as a conscious
It's
being.
counterintuitive.
Yeah, it's essentially you in the end process you still get the same person, right?
So it's like
Yeah,
it's motion. So it's not the cross section.
I
It's
mean
the
here's
entire.
here's the issue. It's it's motion in the sense that information is being transferred, but the model is being changed. It's essentially like if you took the car apart and put it back together in the other place, and essentially it's the same car, right? It has the same parts, the same structure, and yeah, that's the general idea. And here's
I
a
had an interesting theory earlier about the cross section thing as in regards to to quantum entanglement.
right.
And it comes with the idea of if a three-dimensional balloon were
Mm,
moving through a two-dimensional plane, and the people in the two-dimensional plane were observing it, they
it
would
would
say,
be
"Oh, it's a dot, and it becomes a circle, a growing circle, and
yeah,
it
yeah.
becomes
I
smaller and pumps out." Now, I think that quantum entanglement itself might be, this is a guess, okay, based on that, it's the cross section thing. It might be that the entire operation of quantum entanglement in the universe might be
what as in
a
like
no,
a higher dimensional action,
a
right?
balloon. It
Right.
might be a balloon
And
moving through from a higher dimension through our dimension, like our
right.
balloon would move to
And
2D.
and
So
through
yeah,
and through quantum entanglement and like more not quantum entanglement, more quantum tunneling, as in one
I
particle
don't know what
can
that is. I never heard that.
it's I believe it's where a particle can travel instantaneous, a subatomic particle can travel instantaneous from one point to the other, and
My point
right.
My point is that all of this, all of what we consider physics and science, and this is quantum entanglement, might be just what we're seeing as cross sections of a larger object that is seen as a complete object, like the balloon, from a perspective of a higher dimensional space dimension, like the third dimension to the second dimension,
Right.
and it's moving through our dimension, like the balloon through the second dimension, and we're only seeing cross sections of it, and that's what we interpret as physics.
Oh,
But we're only seeing cross sections.
that's brilliant. I understand it. Yeah,
Thank you.
that's brilliant. No, that is
And
truly brilliant.
have I used too many postdoctoral words that are let's say 20 quid words? I'm trying to, I don't know the 20 pound words. How about that? 20 pound words. I'm trying to make the.
I suppose.
I don't know
Yeah.
what a quid is. I don't. I've heard it on Doctor Who. That's all.
Yeah. I suppose yeah, the pound is like a unit. It's like one
you know
one
what I'm
dollar.
saying? Like, when
Yeah,
you have a
I
word,
understand.
it's
Yeah, I
It's
understand.
got 5 syllables. Okay,
Right.
when every word you use to describe something is 5 or 6 syllables, you may be guilty of what Dr. Famo was talking about.
Yeah.
Not you specifically, but anyone who tries to disguise their ignorance in jargon.
Right.
Is
Yeah.
just throwing around words that only their colleagues
That-
can understand, and everyone praises them for their ignorance, praises them for their intelligence, and it's the Emperor's New Clothes.
But how exactly would you describe quantum entanglement on a 4D plane itself? Because quantum entanglement is basically where through energy, um, when there's a high amount of energy, due to the large amount of energy, um, like two opposite subatomic particles are created in that instance, in which energy dissipates into two particles,
Well, my
and
understanding of quantum entanglement is you have two particles, right?
they're
And
connected, right?
what you yeah, but they're not connected by anything.
They are,
They're not. They're not. My understanding is from whatever, and I'm probably wrong, right?
right,
Is that you have two particles and there's no energy exchange between them.
right.
And you can have the thing is what you do to one affects the other, regardless of the distance between them. So
How
you have one particle being affected at one end of the universe, and the
mm,
other particles at the other end of the universe. And what you do to one affects the other with
right,
no energy exchange,
right.
and that means that distance is imaginary.
Yeah, but I think I've gone more. I think I've read up on it because
All right, well,
I'm doing physics in A level,
well
and
then
we
explain it to me like someone in the eighth grade. You use eighth grade.
okay.
Let's do it
Okay,
on
let's do
pavement.
it. Okay, let's do it.
Explain your understanding of quantum entanglement
Okay,
as if I was in the eighth grade.
okay. So the number one thing is energy. Okay, we from mass and energy. From energy, you can produce mass. When an item has mass, it really just has a store of energy, and that's why particles that do not have charge, such as a neutrino, generally is almost massless. And through that logic, energy can turn into mass, right?
Okay.
And that means that once a photon, a photon, so some light or something, has become so energetic, it can turn into two complementary particles, a subatomic particle, and the antiparticle, right? And when if these two
Can I pause you? Can hold, I have a story based on that. When I was like I think like 10 or from 8 to 10, I was living in that's at the south in the city of my birth, Woonsocket, Rhode Island, in the United States. And there was this kid named Phil, and
mm,
he had a pool. That's where I hung out with him, right?
okay,
And I had just learned somehow about antiparticles. Somehow, it was before the internet, okay? So I have no
okay,
idea how I got this idea of antiparticles at 10 years old, okay? But I was just playing with the idea, and me and Phil came out with this joke. We were like, we were doing the Star Trek impressions, and I was like, Captain, we are running out of antiparticle jelly beans. It was awesome. That's something that occurred to me from my past. I was laughing at that. I wanted to share the story. Go on. I'm sorry.
no, but yeah, antiparticles can
Captain, we are running out of antiparticle jelly beans. That was a 10-year-old joke. And I was
wow.
we were 10 years old, and that was a joke we made before the internet was even a thing. How did that happen? I don't understand.
Kind of meme worthy, I guess. um,
Uh,
but yeah, I suppose the main thing is that antiparticles and particles, they're generally composed of anti subatomic particles. So I learned that say a neutron is composed of three quarks, right? So it's a baryon, and that means it's a heavy element. And these three quarks, once you add up their charge values, they produce zero because neutrons don't have a charge, right? But their mass adds up to one. In an antineutron, it would still add up to one. I mean, it would add up to zero charge and one mass. But here's where things are different. Um, when it comes to protons, they have the normal proton would have a plus one charge, right? But the antiproton would have a minus one charge. When these two charges interact, they cancel out, producing energy. And the same would occur in this instance if the two particles, antiparticles, would interact. So that's the main issue with using quantum entanglement. We'd have to first we'd first have to unentangle. Well, we'd first have to entangle particles, create entangled particles with energy, and then we'd have to unentangle them, or else they could connect and This
I think I have an even better idea.
right.
How about we create the parallel thinking brain first and solve the problem as if it were 1 plus 1 and be done with it?
That would be great. That would really be great.
I think we should do that first.
That would be really great.
I mean, immortality is great, but I think that would be even better.
Yeah. People have resolved it though. People have resolved it. They use the idea of using
Solve the black hole equation in 2 seconds.
Wow, that would be fantastic. But yeah, and that's the thing with that's the main issue. The two particles are opposite in they're generally opposite in charge and in strangeness. I think I'm not sure in spin. So and spin produces the charge in spin.
Actually, can I? I'm sorry, I keep pausing.
Yeah, no, go on. Right.
On phys.org, you know, you aware of phys.org? It's like it's the word physics, but without the IC at the end. And it's basically I don't know if you've seen it.
No, I haven't. I haven't.
I have a whole bunch of links to send you because it's really interesting. It talks about this new thing called spintronics. Have you heard of it?
I think I read up on one of your posts.
My post, yeah.
Right,
it's actually
yeah.
instead of the electron exchange or the positive negative charges between that's electronics. Instead of that,
we're using the spin value and the superpositions.
It's the spin around the individual ions of the molecules. Is my understanding.
Right.
Now that could create some amazing things. The first thing I've heard that might be possible because of it is turning light into liquid.
Wait, what? Light.
Spintronics has the potential, from my reading, from what I've read on that site, right? From articles, has been the idea. Spintronics has the potential to turn light into liquid.
Maybe if it were, here's where the issue is. I do not know. I believe generally light, energetic light, such as gamma rays, do turn into electrons and positrons, I believe, and they can't really they don't really interact to produce matter, right? But
I'm not pretending to know what I'm talking about.
No. I'm saying no. I'm just linking it to what you're saying. Maybe if the mass produced from the energy of the light could turn into other types of subatomic particles, I don't know if that's possible. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't think so.
I have an interesting idea. For our next podcast, if you'd like to make this a series, let's prepare a list of topics that we find interesting, what we're talking about, and let's back it up with have a bunch of documented sources that we consider credible, right? Like if I had the article in question, right, I could actually know what I was talking about, but I'm kind of speaking from memory. So in our next podcast, if you'd like to make this a series, let's actually back up our conjecture.
That would be great.
Actually documented sources that we can actually put on the bottom of the YouTube video to follow along.
I mean, what we're really doing is just discussing food for thought, right?
Yes, but
just interesting
it would be
concepts.
more academically honest.
Definitely.
If we cited our sources,
definitely.
It would help us know what we're talking about, because trying to retrieve all this from memory is basically one of the reasons why I've had to say, "Oh, I'll come back to my point."
Right.
You know, I forgot what I was talking about because I have too much of my head going on right now because I'm trying to cite a documented source that I don't have in front of me.
Right. Yeah. It must be a lot on both parts. Yeah. Yeah. We should definitely do that. Yeah. That next time.
Too much
guesswork. To be honest, I really wouldn't mind. You know, I really wouldn't mind.
Especially since scientists work on the burden of evidence, and it's nothing but hearsay. We don't have the evidence. In a way.
Yeah, that would be great. And to be honest, on making it a series, I wouldn't mind. That would be great.
That would be fun. You know, are you aware of how to monetize a YouTube channel?
Mine is not monetized. It's not.
Well, if we can get a good audience, I have actually researched how to do that. I haven't made much money, but I've actually researched a lot of ways that works with Google Analytics. With this thing called TubeBuddy, which lets you look at the statistics of other people's videos and how much money that they're making. I've actually seen a Dragon Ball Super video where I looked at the video. It was just a still image And a lot of people do this now. That because people are freaking out of the new anime series Dragon Ball Super. Someone will just take a picture of,
Mm.
or take a static picture of whatever happened in the episode, and they'll just talk over it, and
Wow.
they end up making like over $3,000 just for that video because people are freaking out
Damn.
over it, and the money's being made through Google advertisements being clicked
Yeah.
and
No,
through
I.
page views. So would you like to work at a backbreaking job, or would you like to nerd out over Dragon Ball Z or anime and get paid $3,000 for a single video?
Yeah,
And that's happening right now,
yeah,
based on the stats I've seen.
it's
It's
ridiculous. It is ridiculous. Yeah.
So I think that's something we could actually profit from if we're just
would
talking about something interesting.
Mm.
And we could be making money from just even from this recording.
Oh yeah,
You know?
definitely.
And we can share in the profits. It'd be very interesting.
The
You know, I
general
mean-
the general concern is just building up a viewer base. You know.
Of course.
I mean-
But I'm talking about like for the future, and if we build up
yeah.
like a collection of the, we might even sell the podcast episodes on iTunes.
Whatever works.
Whatever works. It's an idea.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Regardless, if it works or not, it's not regret. The important thing is that we're getting these ideas out there, and I'm happy to have someone intelligent to talk to, because everyone in this town is just dreadfully dull.
No, it's
Like-
it's the same thing.
like a minus. If the IQ, if you had the numerical, if you quantify their IQ in a number, it would be a negative.
Right.
Okay, they have like a minus bachelor's minus.
Negative IQ.
They're trying. Almost like they're actively trying to get a 0 on a test. Let me give you an example.
It's like a challenge to get dumb.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I went down to get a pizza down the road, and there was a printout advertising a class on why evolution is wrong.
Oh boy.
And
You know,
it was
I would just
it was
go to
actually
that.
before I forget what I was saying, let me complete my point.
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. 15 PhDs. They said, okay, this is backed up by 15 PhDs that evolution is wrong.
What?
And they were going to teach a class, and my hand went into my face, and I kept walking.
To be honest, I would have been the moment I saw it, I would have applied to the class just to ruin the ideas, just to shit on them, you know.
Well, you know, it's just, and you know what? Because the thing is, normally people would say, "Oh, that's a religious thing. People don't believe in evolution."
Right.
When they say, "Oh, it's backed up by 15 PhDs," now they're using the credibility of the title of PhD to validate something that's complete nonsense. And that's actually harmful. That's almost like the Feynman technique and the Emperor's New Clothes, where then you think that something's real based on the fact that it's credible, but really the Emperor is not wearing any clothes, and it's the Emperor's New Spirit, basically. The Emperor's New Spirit.
Yeah, it's all of the logical fallacies just mixed into one perfect little suit.
I know, but when you justify that with experts, and everyone respects experts and doesn't question them, I'm sorry, but that's dangerous. That's like saying, like, oh, faith healing, we will cure your cancer, or cure your child's cancer by praying over them, and we will do that in lieu, and we will do, instead of doing proper medical treatment, and then the child dies, and say, oh, I guess God didn't want my child to live.
We will cure your death with faith.
In the face by a reasonable individual and says, hey, you let your child die. No, I simply use an alternative medicine. No, you're just an idiot that let your child die. Okay, that was actually an episode of Family Guy. You remember that?
I think I've seen it. Is it the one?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, where Faith, she's trying to rescue a child who's dying of cancer from parents who wanted to do faith healing.
Yeah. And like the Griffin family wanted that kid to basically take medicine and stuff and all that.
And that's why it was ridiculously dangerous for a credible title to be used in lieu of some trying to prove something that's actively dark ages.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, there's also the idea in family multiverse where because we didn't have Christianity, there were no dark ages, and we were actually 1,000 years more advanced because we never had the dark ages. And I love the idea. Have you seen Meg? Well, look at Meg. If you saw Lois, you'd have a heart attack. Because if Meg is the ugly one,
a lot of blood
Lois
pressure,
looks
a lot of blood
oh my
pressure.
gosh, she is glowing like a goddess and just driving men insane. I'm glad they didn't animate that. I would have had a heart attack.
No,
Anyway.
it's just it's literally just, you know what? Religion is the new transhumanism. We will cure your death. We will
Oh
cure
my
your
gosh.
death with faith healing. We'll make you
No,
live forever.
transhumanism is actually using science. I mean, at least they're using some kind of understanding of, okay, we're not just saying, oh, we'll make you immortal. No, the concept is, okay, you know what, we don't know what we're doing, but at least we're on the right track, and we're making hypothesis, and we're testing, and we're on the road to it. We're on the road to Rhode Island. Yeah, we're on the road to transhumanism.
But
Imagine Brian singing the road to transhumanism. That'd be funny.
that would be a great spin-off episode.
Well, you know, Seth MacFarlane is a genius, is a comedic genius, and I do think highly of him. I like Dan Harmon too with Rick and Morty. Rick and Morty is one of my favorite sci-fi cartoons right now.
Oh yeah, it's on my top list. Yeah.
Rickety Rickety Rick, son. Oh, man. Yeah, you know what? I like. There's actually a YouTube channel called Chetrio, and he actually takes the individual episodes and makes like rap type music, auto tune music.
I
videos.
actually stumbled on him. Yeah, I stumbled
It's
on that
so
channel.
wonderful. So
Yeah,
wonderful. I'm Mr. Basics. Look at me. I'm Mr. Basics. Yes, sirree. I love that so much. I was listening.
Yeah, I
Market.
heard the one on the Evil Morty theme, and it was a cool remix.
Evil Morty, yeah. I love that they brought back Evil Morty, and now they're developing Evil Morty
To be honest,
as a politician that is actually very smart.
It was I think the episode was really great. It was quite deep and insightful into a lot of the flaws of society. I sort of pictured Evil Morty as a like Mao or Hitler, sort of.
Really?
Just
Did you
gradually-
catch Harmon? Did you catch Harmon Morty?
Wait, what?
There's a Harmon Morty in the Creepy Morty. And in the Creepy Morty, you know the Creepy Morty, the strip club for Mortys in that
Right.
episode?
Right.
There's actually someone was analyzing some of the analysis videos of these cartoons, and somebody pointed out that there was a Harmon Morty, where
Really?
Dan Harmon had placed himself in his own story as a Morty, and he had a beard, and he was leaning back. And he's only there for like a couple seconds, or even a whole second. But you see,
Wait,
the fans are identifying him as Harmon Morty, and that's like it's almost like an Inception, Morty Inception, bro.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. Okay. So, what should we talk about now, or what?
we talked about whole brain emulation. We talked about science fiction. And we talked about religion.
Right.
I think we should round this out.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's run that. How long is this recording right now?
Oh, it's been like an hour. Yeah.
Okay, I think it's gonna take forever for you to upload that. I think.
Yeah.
Unless you have like ridiculously fast internet.
Yeah. It's gonna.
Let's just round it out. Okay. What would you like to call this podcast? Let's give it a name.
I have no idea, to be honest.
Okay.
Let's name it right now.
Okay. How about let's do something like science fiction-ish.
Go on.
Let's go.
Go on.
Dr. Rick.
Dr. Rick.
Dr. Rick.
Really? It's just like a rip-off. It's like the giant rip-off. Okay, so
Yeah.
we're gonna call this entire like series or whatever Dr. Rick. Wow.
Yeah, let's go. Let's call it the Council of Dr. Ricks.
Wow. No, it's not really like
Let's call it Dr. Rick. Let's call it
Dr.
Rick.
Rick.
I'm exaggerating.
Cool.
I'm thinking. I
Alright,
can just
cool.
say a whole like.
So should I'm gonna leave a link to your SoundCloud, right? Should I? And your.
All right, and you know what? You have my Medium, my Flame Cloaks Medium blog page. You can leave that too, so people
Yeah,
can start discussing that.
I'll put in the description. Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Cool. So thank you for a very intellectual conversation. It was very fun, and I had fun.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, it's
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right.
All right. Yeah. Let's wrap this up. Cool.
All right.